The autumn rain had soaked through my coat by the time I reached my mother's house. My fingers numb as I fumbled with my keys at the front door. I was running late, as usual, my shift at the hospital having gone over by 2 hours, thanks to an emergency that could not wait. My mother's dinner parties always started at 7 sharp, and it was now 7:45. I pushed open the door, immediately hearing the murmur of voices from the dining room. Great. They had already started eating. I would have to make apologetic small talk with whatever business associates my mother had invited this time, pretend to care about investments and portfolios while my feet screamed in protest from 12 hours of standing. A man stood in the hallway, his back to me, studying the family photos that lined the wall. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in an expensive suit that even from behind looked tailored to perfection. One of my mother's guests, obviously, taking a moment away from dinner. "Excuse me." I moved past him toward the stairs, not really looking at his face, too focused on getting to my room to change into something appropriate for dinner. "Sorry, just need to get upstairs." He turned slightly as I passed, and I caught the barest glimpse of his profile. Dark hair, strong jawline, expensive cologne that smelled vaguely familiar, but I was already halfway up the stairs, my wet coat dripping on the hardwood, my mind on the dry clothes waiting in my closet. I changed quickly into a simple black dress, ran a brush through my damp hair, applied minimal makeup to hide the exhaustion. In the mirror, I looked presentable if tired, the same face I saw every day, 28 years old, dark circles under my eyes from too many shifts, a few more lines around my mouth than there had been 5 years ago. 5 years. Had it really been that long? I shook off the thought before it could take root. Tonight was about supporting my mother's business dinner, not dwelling on the past. I had gotten very good at not dwelling on the past. Downstairs, I paused outside the dining room, taking a breath before entering. Through the doorway, I could see my mother at the head of the table, looking elegant as always in a navy dress, her silver hair perfectly styled. 3 other guests sat around the table, including the man from the hallway, now seated with his back to the door. I entered with my practiced smile in place. "Mother, I am so sorry I am late. There was an emergency at the hospital. Natalie." My mother's voice carried that edge of disapproval she had perfected over decades. "We were beginning to worry. Please, come sit. Let me introduce you to our guests." I moved around the table as my mother made introductions. Margaret Hartley, an investor in my mother's real estate company. David Chen, a lawyer who handled corporate acquisitions. And finally, the man from the hallway. And this is Alessandro Dante, a new business partner who has been invaluable in helping expand our operations into new markets. The man stood as my mother spoke his name, turning to face me fully for the first time. Time stopped. The face I had tried so hard to forget. The dark eyes that had once looked at me with such intensity. The slight scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood accident he had told me about during one of our late-night conversations. The mouth that had kissed me goodbye 5 years ago and promised it was not forever. Alessandro Dante. Not the name I had known him by. Not the man I had thought he was. But undeniably, unmistakably, the man who had shattered my heart so completely that I had spent 5 years rebuilding myself from the pieces. Natalie. He said my name like he was testing it, like he was not sure I was real. His hand extended automatically for a handshake, and I saw it tremble slightly before he steadied it. I stared at him, my practiced smile frozen on my face, my mind unable to process what I was seeing. This could not be happening. He could not be here, could not be standing in my mother's dining room, introduced as a business partner, looking at me with an expression that was equal parts shock, and something I could not name. "Have you two met before?" My mother's voice cut through the shock. "The way you are looking at each other." "No." I found my voice, pulled my hand back from where it had been hanging in the air, not quite meeting his offered handshake. "I do not believe we have." The lie tasted like ash, but what else could I say? "Yes, Mother. I know him. He was the love of my life 5 years ago when I thought he was a graduate student named Alex, before he disappeared without explanation, leaving only a note saying he had to go, that it was not safe, that I should forget about him. Before I spent a year trying to find him, another year trying to understand, and 3 more years trying to stop caring. My apologies." Alessandro's voice was steady, controlled, but I caught the muscle ticking in his jaw. "You must have one of those faces. Very familiar." I sat in the empty chair across from him, as far away as the table allowed, my heart hammering so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. A server appeared with a plate for me, but I could not imagine eating. Could not imagine doing anything except trying to understand how this was possible. The dinner conversation flowed around me, my mother discussing property acquisitions, Margaret asking about market trends, David explaining some complicated legal structure. And through it all, Alessandro, this stranger wearing the face of the man I had loved, participating smoothly, giving no indication that his entire world had just tilted on its axis the way mine had. But I saw the signs, the way his fingers tightened on his wine glass when my mother mentioned how proud she was of me becoming a nurse, the way his eyes flickered to me every time I moved, like he was afraid I would disappear if he looked away, the way his voice caught, just barely, when my mother mentioned that I had moved back to the city 2 years ago after working in Boston. He had not known I was here, had not known my mother was my mother. The shock in his eyes when he first saw me was genuine, which meant this was coincidence, horrible, impossible coincidence, or fate playing the cruelest joke imaginable. So, Natalie, Margaret turned her attention to me, her smile kind. Your mother tells us you are working at St. Mary's Hospital. Emergency department? Yes. I forced myself to engage, to pretend everything was normal. I have been there for 6 years now. It is challenging work, but rewarding. She has always been driven. My mother's voice carried pride mixed with something else. Even as a child, she wanted to help people, to fix things. The words landed like stones. Alessandro's hand tightened on his fork, and for just a moment, his mask slipped. I saw pain flash across his face, raw and unconcealed. So he remembered the girl I had been 5 years ago, who had told him about her dreams of saving lives, who had believed that love and determination could fix anything, who had been so naive about the world and its cruelties. A commendable calling. Alessandro's voice was carefully neutral. The world needs more people willing to dedicate themselves to healing. Yes, well, it does not leave much time for a personal life. My mother's pointed comment was directed at me. I keep telling Natalie she works too much, that she should make time for relationships, for building a future beyond the hospital. I am perfectly content with my life. I met my mother's eyes steadily, ignoring the fact that Alessandro was watching this exchange with laser focus. Not everyone needs a relationship to be fulfilled. Of course not, Alessandro interjected smoothly, though sometimes the right relationship finds us when we least expect it, often in ways we never imagined. The double meaning was clear, at least to me. I looked at him directly for the first time since sitting down, letting him see the anger I had been holding back. And sometimes relationships we thought were real turn out to be illusions. I kept my voice pleasant, conversational, built on lies and destined to crumble the moment reality intrudes. How philosophical. David, the lawyer, seemed oblivious to the undercurrent. I suppose that is true in business as well. Partnerships that seem solid on the surface but hide fundamental incompatibilities. Exactly. I took a sip of wine, needing something to do with my hands, which is why transparency is so important. Knowing exactly who you are dealing with, what they are capable of, what they might do when circumstances change. I agree completely. Alessandro's eyes never left mine, though I would argue that sometimes people keep secrets to protect others, not from malice, but from love, from a desire to shield them from harsh realities they are better off not knowing. That is a convenient rationalization. My voice hardened, but it still amounts to deception, and when those secrets inevitably come to light, the damage is often worse than if the truth had been told from the beginning. My mother cleared her throat, clearly sensing the tension even if she did not understand its source. Perhaps we should move on to dessert? I made tiramisu. As everyone stood and began moving toward the living room, Alessandro moved to intercept me. Natalie. His voice was low, urgent. We need to talk, privately. I do not think we have anything to discuss. I tried to step around him. His hand caught my elbow, gentle but firm. Please, 5 minutes. That is all I am asking. You have no right to ask me for anything. I pulled my arm free. You lost that right 5 years ago when you walked away without a real explanation. I had reasons. I am sure you did. Anger bubbled up, hot and corrosive. Just like I am sure you have reasons for using a different name now, for being a business partner to my mother, for showing up in my life again without warning. I did not know. His intensity was almost frightening. I swear to you, I did not know you were her daughter. I did not know you were here, and yet here you are. I gestured around us, in my mother's house, doing business with her. Small world, is not it? Before he could respond, my mother appeared with David and Margaret, shepherding us toward the living room where dessert and coffee waited. I used the interruption to put distance between Alessandro and myself, choosing a seat as far from him as possible. The rest of the evening was torture. Small talk and coffee and dessert that tasted like cardboard in my mouth. Alessandro was the perfect guest, charming and attentive to my mother and her friends, giving no indication of the turmoil I knew he must be feeling. But I caught him watching me when he thought no one was looking. caught the pain in his eyes that mirrored my own. Whatever his reasons for leaving, whatever secrets he was keeping now, seeing me had affected him deeply. I did not know if that made things better or worse. By 10 o'clock, I could not take it anymore. I made excuses about an early shift, thanked everyone for dinner, and retreated to my room. But I did not change into pajamas. Instead, I stood at my window, looking out at the garden below, waiting. I knew he would come, knew he would not leave without trying again to talk to me. And sure enough, 20 minutes later, I heard the soft knock at my door. Natalie, his voice through the wood. Please, I am begging you, let me explain. I should have told him to leave, should have maintained my walls and my distance. But 5 years of questions, of wondering, of trying to understand what had happened, demanded answers. I opened the door. Alessandro stood in the hallway. His composure finally cracked. His tie was loosened, his hair mussed like he had been running his hands through it. His eyes held a desperation I remembered from one other time. The night before he left. You have 5 minutes. I stepped back to let him in. Then I want you out of this house, and out of my life. Again, he entered, and I closed the door, leaning against it, arms crossed defensively. The distance between us was maybe 10 feet, but it felt like miles. I did not know. He started with that, his voice raw. I did not know your mother was Elizabeth Natalie Morrison. She goes by Elizabeth in all business dealings. I had no idea she had a daughter, let alone that you were that daughter. You said you were a graduate student. I cut to what mattered. You said your name was Alex Santos. You said you were studying architecture. Every single thing you told me was a lie. Not everything. Alessandro moved closer, and I held up a hand to stop him. My name is Alessandro. Alex is a nickname I used when I wanted to be someone else, someone normal, and I was studying architecture. At least I had been before my father died, and I had to take over the family business. What family business? I demanded. What were you really doing in this city 5 years ago? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said the words I had half suspected, but never wanted to believe. My family is the Dante organization. We control most of the port operations on the East Coast. Shipping, logistics, import-export. Some of it legitimate, much of it less so. When my father died, I became the head of the family at 31 years old. I had no choice but to step into that role. The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. You are a criminal, a mob boss. I am the head of an organization that operates in gray areas. Alessandro's voice was tired. Some of what we do is perfectly legal. Some of it is not. I have spent the past 5 years trying to move us toward legitimacy, but these things take time. And me? I pushed off the door, anger propelling me forward. Where did I fit into your grand plan? Was I some kind of amusement before you had to go be a crime lord? A nice diversion from your real life? You were the only real thing in my life. Alessandro's voice broke. The only time I got to be just Alex. Just a man falling in love with an incredible woman. Not the Dante heir. Not the next boss. Just me. Do not do that. Tears threatened, and I blinked them back furiously. Do not romanticize what you did. You lied to me for 6 months. Let me believe we had a future. Then you left a note and disappeared like I meant nothing. You meant everything. He closed the distance between us. That is why I left. Because my enemies found out about you. Because they started following you, taking pictures, making plans to use you against me. So you left to protect me. I laughed bitterly. How noble. Did it ever occur to you to tell me the truth? To let me make my own choice about the danger? You were 23 years old. Alessandro's hands clenched into fists at his sides. A nursing student with dreams of saving lives. What was I supposed to say? Oh, by the way, I am actually a crime boss, and dating me might get you killed. Stay with me anyway? You were supposed to trust me. I stepped closer, jabbing a finger into his chest. You were supposed to give me the truth and let me decide. Instead, you made the choice for me. Took away my agency. Broke my heart to save it. I know. His hand came up to cover mine where it pressed against his chest. I know I handled it wrong. I have replayed that night 1,000 times, thought of 1,000 different ways I could have done it better. But I was terrified, Natalie. Terrified of what they would do to you if I did not make a clean break. And now? I left my hand where it was, feeling his heartbeat racing beneath my palm. What about now? You are still a crime boss, still have enemies, still live in a world of danger. So why are you here? Why are you doing business with my mother? Because I have been trying to go legitimate. Alessandro's free hand came up to cup my face. Your mother's company handles real estate acquisition and development. Exactly the kind of legal business I am trying to expand into. I have been working with her for 6 months, never knowing, never imagining, that I would walk past you in the hallway, that you would be sitting at her dinner table. I finished. What are the odds? I do not believe in odds. His thumb traced my cheekbone. I believe in fate. And fate brought you back into my life when I had finally accepted I would never see you again. I should have pulled away, should have maintained my anger and my distance. But his touch, after 5 years, felt like coming home and ripping open old wounds in equal measure. This is insane, I whispered. You cannot just walk back into my life and expect everything to be okay. I do not expect that. Alessandro's forehead rested against mine. I expect you to hate me, to tell me to leave, to want nothing to do with me. But I am hoping, praying, that maybe there is a small part of you that remembers what we had, that wants to hear the whole story, that might be willing to give me a chance to make things right. Things can never be right. I closed my eyes against the tears. You broke my heart, Alessandro. It took me years to put the pieces back together. I cannot go through that again. I know. His lips brushed my forehead, feather-light, and I will leave right now if that is what you want. I will walk away from the business deal with your mother, disappear from your life again, whatever you need to feel safe. The offer was genuine. I could hear it in his voice. He would walk away, would sacrifice the business arrangement, the progress toward legitimacy he had been building, would put my well-being above his own interests. It was exactly the opposite of what he had done 5 years ago. I started, then stopped, not sure what I wanted. To understand, I finally said. I want to understand everything, the whole truth, not the edited version. Why you really left, what your life has been like, why you are trying to go legitimate, all of it. You will have it. Alessandro pulled back to look me in the eyes. Every truth, every ugly detail. I will hide nothing from you, and then you can decide what, if anything, you want to do with that information. If you enjoyed this emotional reunion so far, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you do not miss what happens when Natalie discovers the full extent of Alessandro's dangerous world and the enemies who still want to hurt him. We talked until 3 a.m, Alessandro sitting in the chair by my window, me on my bed. The physical distance necessary while he tore open every wound from the past and showed me what had been festering beneath. He told me about growing up in the Dante family, about his father's brutality and his mother's quiet desperation, about being trained from childhood to take over an empire built on violence and fear, about meeting me during the 1 year his father had sent him away to get an education before returning to take his place in the organization. He told me about falling in love with me while knowing it was impossible, about the plans we made that he knew could never happen, about receiving the call that his father had been killed by a rival family and he needed to return immediately. And he told me about the photos, the surveillance his enemies had conducted on me, the very real and credible threats they had made about what would happen if he did not cooperate with their demands, the choice he had faced between putting me in constant danger or breaking my heart to save my life. I listened without interrupting, letting him speak, watching his face as he relived those awful days, and I saw something I had not expected. Genuine anguish, real regret, the marks of a man who had carried this weight for 5 years and finally had a chance to set it down. When he finished, silence filled my room. Outside, the first hints of dawn were painting the sky. Why not tell me this at the time? I finally asked. Why the vague note instead of the truth? Because I thought if you knew the real reason, you would insist on staying, would try to convince me you could handle the danger. Alessandro's voice was hoarse from talking, and I could not take that risk. I had seen what my father's enemies did to the people he loved. I could not let that happen to you. So you made the choice for me? Yes. He met my eyes. And I would do it again if I thought it would keep you safe. But I also recognize now that I took away your agency, treated you like someone who needed protection rather than a partner who deserved truth. That was wrong. The acknowledgement meant something. Did not fix what he had broken, but showed growth, understanding, the ability to see past his own perspective. These enemies, I needed to know. Are they still a threat? If there was any possibility of something between us again, would I still be in danger? Less than before, but yes. Alessandro did not soften it. I have eliminated some threats, made alliances with others, but men in my position always have enemies. Being connected to me will always carry risk, so nothing has really changed. I wrapped my arms around myself. You are still who you are. Your world is still dangerous, and I am still someone who could be used as leverage. Those things are true. Alessandro stood, moving to sit on the edge of my bed, careful not to touch me. But what has changed is me. I am not the scared 31-year-old who thought the only way to protect you was to push you away. I am older, more established, better able to provide real protection. And I have resources now that I did not have then. Protection. I repeated the word. Is that what you are offering? A life spent looking over my shoulder, surrounded by bodyguards, always aware of danger? I am offering honesty. Alessandro's hand hovered near mine, not quite touching. A real choice based on complete information. Yes, there would be risks. Yes, there would be complications. But there would also be truth, partnership, someone who sees you not as a liability to be protected, but as a person capable of making informed decisions. I stared at our hands, inches apart, the space between them representing 5 years of hurt and healing. I cannot make that decision right now, I said finally. This is too much, too fast. I need time to process, to think about what this would mean. I understand. Alessandro stood. Take all the time you need. I am not going anywhere unless you ask me to. What about my mother? The business deal? I will honor my commitments to her regardless of your decision. His expression was sincere. This is separate. Your relationship with me, or lack thereof, will not affect her business. How do I know you are not manipulating me? I looked up at him. How do I know this is not some elaborate scheme to get closer to my mother's company? To use me for some angle I do not see? You do not. Alessandro's honesty was stark. You have to decide whether to trust me based on what you know of who I am, of who I was with you 5 years ago, of whether the man you loved then still exists somewhere inside the person I have become. He left quietly, slipping out of my room and down the stairs without waking anyone else in the house. I sat on my bed as the sun rose, my mind spinning with everything he had told me. Alessandro Dante, crime lord, my mother's business partner, the man who broke my heart. And underneath all of that, maybe still Alex, the man who had loved architecture and poetry and me. I did not know if I could reconcile those two people, did not know if I wanted to try. But as I finally crawled into bed as dawn broke, one thought circled endlessly. He had come back. And despite everything, despite the pain and the lies and the years between us, my heart had recognized him the moment our eyes met. That had to mean something, even if I was terrified to examine what. I called in sick to work the next day, something I almost never did, but I could not face 12 hours in the emergency department, not with my mind churning through everything Alessandro had told me. Instead, I spent the morning researching. If he wanted me to make an informed decision, then I would get all the information available. The Dante family was not hard to find once I knew what to look for. News articles about port operations and shipping companies, business filings that showed Alessandro's name on legitimate corporations, and underneath that, in the spaces between official records, hints of the darker activities, investigations that went nowhere, associates with criminal records, patterns that suggested money moving through complex channels. But there was also evidence of what Alessandro had claimed, the gradual shift toward legitimate business over the past 5 years, the sale of criminal assets, the investments in legal operations, a man trying to transform his family's legacy. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Where were you this morning? I wanted to discuss the dinner party. Mr. Dante was very impressive, do not you think? I am considering expanding our partnership. Guilt twisted in my stomach. My mother had no idea who Alessandro really was, what kind of world she was getting involved with. I needed to warn her, but how could I without explaining how I knew? Another text. This one from an unknown number. I know I said I would give you space, but I could not help myself. I wanted you to have this. A link followed. I clicked it, finding a private photo album. Pictures I had never seen before, of me, taken from a distance over the past 5 years, walking to work, sitting in a coffee shop, laughing with friends. My blood ran cold. Was this a threat? Proof that Alessandro had been watching me all this time? Then I saw the dates, all of them from the first year after he left, nothing recent, and at the bottom, a note. I told myself I would stay away, that you were safer without me, but I could not stop myself from checking that you were okay, that you were living your life. These are the only photos, Natalie. After the first year, I forced myself to stop, to truly let you go. I am not proud of this invasion of your privacy, but I wanted you to see that even when I stayed away, I never stopped caring. I sat on my bed, staring at images of myself from 5 years ago, younger, sadder, moving through my life in Boston like a ghost. I remembered that year, the numbness, the grief, the slow, painful process of learning to exist without him. He had been watching, had seen my pain. Had it hurt him to see what his leaving had done to me? My phone rang. Alessandro, did you get them? His voice was tentative. Yes, I clicked through another photo. Me sitting on a bench in Boston Common, staring at nothing. Why are you showing me these? Because you asked for complete honesty. These are part of the truth. I stayed away because I believed it was safer for you. But I was not strong enough to completely cut ties. Not that first year. This is creepy, Alessandro. I kept my voice level. You know that, right? Watching someone without their knowledge. I know. He sounded miserable. It was a violation of your privacy. But I am trying to show you that even at my worst, even when I was doing the wrong thing, it came from caring too much rather than too little. That is not the comfort you think it is. I closed the album. Caring does not excuse boundary violations. You are right. I am sorry. Silence for a moment. Natalie, I am trying to be honest, but I am clearly doing it badly. Can I see you? Talk in person instead of through a phone. I do not know if that is a good idea. Please. I will come to you wherever you want. Public place. Private. With your mother as a chaperone if that would make you more comfortable. Just give me another chance to explain better. Against all logic, I agreed. The coffee shop near the hospital. 2 hours. I got there early, staking out a corner table where I could watch the entrance. My nerves sang with tension, caffeine and anxiety mixing in my bloodstream. Alessandro arrived exactly on time, dressed more casually than I had seen him since 5 years ago. Jeans and a dark sweater, his hair slightly mussed from the wind. He looked younger, more like the Alex I remembered. Thank you for meeting me. He sat across from me, no attempt to touch, maintaining respectful distance. I know you did not have to. I want to ask you something. I wrap my hands around my coffee cup, and I need you to answer honestly, even if the truth is ugly. Anything. Did you know who my mother was before you started doing business with her? Did you seek her out because of me? No. Alessandro's answer was immediate. I swear to you, I had no idea. Your mother goes by Elizabeth Morrison professionally. You told me your mother's name was Beth, that she lived in California. I never made the connection. She moved here 3 years ago. After her company expanded, I studied his face for signs of deception. So this really is coincidence. Horrible, impossible coincidence. He echoed my thoughts from the dinner party. When I realized who you were, I nearly walked out of that dinner. The only thing that stopped me was knowing how unprofessional it would be, how it would reflect badly on your mother, how considerate. Sarcasm colored my voice. I am trying to do the right things now. Alessandro leaned forward. I know I failed you before, but I am asking for a chance to prove I can be better, that I have learned from my mistakes. By showing me creepy surveillance photos? By showing you everything, he corrected. The good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. Because you deserve a partner who trusts you with truth, not someone who makes decisions for you based on what he thinks you can handle. I sipped my coffee, buying time to organize my thoughts. Let me tell you what I see, I finally said. I see a man who hurt me badly, who is now involved with my mother's business, putting her at potential risk, who claims to want transparency, but has a history of lies, who says he loves me but disappeared for 5 years. I do not know how to reconcile all of that. You cannot. Alessandro's voice was raw, because they are contradictions. I am contradictory. I want to be good, but I do terrible things. I want to be honest, but I built my life on secrets. I want to love you, but my love comes with danger attached. Then why should I even consider this? I demanded. Why should I open myself up to being hurt again? Because, he reached across the table, stopping just short of touching my hand. Because I think you still love me, the same way I still love you. And I think we both spent the past 5 years half alive, going through the motions, pretending we were fine when we were just surviving. That is not love. I pulled my hand back. That is trauma bonding. Maybe. Alessandro sat back. Or maybe it is the recognition that what we had was real and rare and worth fighting for. Even if that fight is messy and complicated and might not work out. I could have walked away then. Should have. But something in his words resonated with a truth I had been avoiding. I had not been fine for 5 years. Had not dated seriously. Had not let anyone close. Had built my entire life around work and distance. Convincing myself it was contentment when it was really just safety. I need conditions, I heard myself say. If, and this is a massive if, we try anything, I need rules. Name them. Complete transparency about your business. I do not need to know operational details, but I need to know the truth about what you do, the legal and the illegal. Agreed. My mother cannot be put at risk. If doing business with her endangers her in any way, you end the partnership. Her safety comes before your legitimacy goals. Agreed. Alessandro nodded. I have already implemented additional security measures around her company to ensure no one uses the connection to target her. You did what? Anger flared. Without asking? Without telling her why? I hired a security firm to do threat assessments on all my business partners. Alessandro held up his hands. Standard practice. Your mother knows about it, approved it, thinks it is due diligence, which it is. That is exactly the kind of unilateral decision-making I am talking about. I pointed at him. You cannot just do things for my supposed benefit without consulting me. You are right, he acknowledged. What would you have wanted me to do? Told me the truth. Asked if I wanted you to protect my mother. Let me decide whether the risk of connection to you outweighed the benefits of the business partnership. Even if your decision would have been for me to walk away, to leave her company unprotected, especially then, I held his gaze, because it would have been my choice, my risk assessment, my consequence to live with. I see. Alessandro was quiet for a moment. This is going to be difficult for me. I have spent 5 years making decisions alone, determining who needs protection and how to provide it. Learning to consult someone on those decisions will be an adjustment. Then maybe you are not ready for a relationship, I said bluntly, because I will not be with someone who treats me like a child who needs protecting, rather than an adult capable of handling reality. I want to be ready. His vulnerability was evident. I want to learn how to be a partner instead of a protector, but I need you to be patient with me as I figure it out, to call me on it when I slip back into old patterns. Why should I do that emotional labor? I challenged. Why should I teach you how to treat me with respect? Because I think you still care enough to try. Alessandro's eyes held mine. And because I believe I am worth the effort. Not because I am perfect, or because I will get it right the first time, but because I genuinely want to be better. For you. For us. There is no us. I said it automatically. Defense mechanism kicking in. Not yet. He agreed. But there could be. If you are willing to take the risk. I stood, needing distance to think. I am going for a walk. You can come if you stay 2 steps behind and do not talk. He stood immediately, falling into step behind me as requested. We walked like that for 30 minutes, me processing, him silent and patient, through the park near the hospital, around the pond where ducks congregated, past the fountain where couples threw coins and made wishes. Finally, I stopped at a bench and sat. Alessandro waited for permission, before sitting beside me, still maintaining space. I want to try. The words came out before I could second-guess them, but slowly. So slowly it will probably drive you crazy. Coffee dates, public places, getting to know each other again as the people we are now, not who we were 5 years ago. I can do slow. Relief was evident in his voice. I can do whatever you need, and if at any point I feel unsafe or manipulated or like you are slipping back into old patterns, I walk away. No guilt, no trying to convince me otherwise. You let me go. Agreed. Though letting you go once nearly killed me, doing it again might finish the job. That is emotional manipulation, I pointed out, making me responsible for your well-being. You are right. Alessandro corrected himself. I will be devastated if you walk away, but that is my emotion to manage, not your burden to carry. Better. I found myself almost smiling. See? You can learn. With a good teacher. He smiled back, tentative. Thank you, Natalie, for giving me this chance. I will not waste it. We sat on that bench as the sun set. 2 people trying to figure out if the past could be bridged, if love was enough to overcome lies and distance and 5 years of hurt. I did not have answers, but for the first time since walking past him in my mother's hallway, I felt something other than anger and pain. I felt possibility. Dangerous, terrifying possibility, but possibility nonetheless. The next 6 weeks fell into a rhythm. Coffee dates twice a week, dinners at restaurants where Alessandro knew the security, but I felt comfortable. Long conversations about everything and nothing, rebuilding the connection we had once had while acknowledging we were different people now. Alessandro told me about his work, the legal operations he was expanding, the criminal elements he was trying to phase out, the resistance he faced from old guard members of his organization who saw legitimacy as betrayal. I told him about my work, the patients I saved and the ones I lost, the politics of hospital administration, my dreams of eventually moving into trauma surgery if I could afford the additional training. We were careful with each other, polite, testing boundaries and respecting when the other needed space. It felt both familiar and completely new. My mother noticed, of course, the way Alessandro asked about me during business meetings, the way I tensed whenever she mentioned him. She cornered me one evening after he had left from a dinner where business and personal had blurred uncomfortably. There is something between you and Alessandro. It was not a question. What is it? We knew each other years ago. I kept it vague, before he was Alessandro Dante, before I knew what he did. And now? My mother's eyes were sharp. Now that you know. Now I am trying to figure out if the man I knew then still exists inside the person he has become. I met her gaze. You should be careful, Mother. Alessandro's world is not as clean as it appears. I know exactly who Alessandro is. Her response surprised me. What his family does. The gray areas he operates in. You know? Shock rendered me speechless. And you still do business with him? Because he is trying to change. My mother sat beside me, and because sometimes people deserve a chance to be more than their worst actions. Something you taught me, actually, with your work. How you talk about seeing the human behind the trauma. This is different. Alessandro is not some patient who made mistakes. He runs a criminal organization. Does he? My mother challenged. Or is he running a business empire that is transitioning from criminal to legitimate? There is a difference, Natalie. And he has been remarkably transparent with me about where he is in that transition. He told you about his family, about what they do. He told me everything. My mother confirmed. Before we signed our first contract, gave me the option to walk away with no hard feelings. I chose to stay because I believe in the possibility of redemption, and because his money is as good as anyone else's. I did not know how to respond to that. My mother, who I had thought needed protecting, had known the truth all along, had made her own informed choice. You love him. My mother said it gently. Even after everything, you still love him. I do not know if love is the right word. I wrapped my arms around myself. I feel drawn to him, connected. But I also remember how badly it hurt when he left. I am not sure I can survive that again. Then make sure he knows that. My mother stood. Make sure he understands that if he hurts you again, he does not just lose you. He loses my business, my respect, and whatever goodwill he has built. Because you are more important to me than any partnership. The fierce protectiveness in her voice made my chest tight. I had been so focused on protecting her that I had not realized she was doing the same for me. After she left, I sat alone with my thoughts. Alessandro had told my mother the truth, had given her the choice he had not given me 5 years ago. He was learning, growing, trying to be better. Was that enough? My phone buzzed. Alessandro, I know it is late, but I wanted to send you something. A link to another file. This time, instead of photos, it was a legal document. A will, I realized as I read through the legalese. Alessandro's will, leaving significant assets to charities focused on helping children escape poverty and violence. And at the bottom, a recent addition. In the event of my death, a trust fund will be established for Natalie Morrison, to be used for her medical education, or any other purpose she deems fit. This is not to create obligation, but to ensure that someone who has dedicated her life to helping others has the resources to continue that work. I stared at the screen, tears blurring my vision. He had put me in his will, made provisions for my future, even though we were barely dating, even though I might walk away tomorrow. My phone rang. Alessandro, I know you said slow. His voice was rough, but I needed you to see that document, to understand that my commitment to you is not conditional on you staying. Whether we work out or not, I want you to have opportunities, choices, the ability to chase your dreams without financial constraints holding you back. Alessandro, this is too much. It is what you deserve. He interrupted gently. What you have always deserved. I am not asking for anything in return, Natalie. I just wanted you to know that loving you means wanting the best for you, even if the best does not include me. I sat on my bed, phone pressed to my ear, crying for the first time since he had walked back into my life, not from pain or anger, but from the overwhelming recognition that this man, flawed and dangerous as he was, genuinely loved me, not possessively, not manipulatively, just purely and completely. Can I come over? I asked through my tears. I know it is late, but I need to see you. Always. His answer was immediate. I am sending a car. The car arrived within 15 minutes, delivering me to Alessandro's penthouse in the city. He waited at the elevator, and the moment I saw him, I walked straight into his arms. He held me while I cried. No questions, no trying to fix anything, just solid presence and acceptance. When I finally pulled back, his shirt was soaked with my tears. I am sorry. I wiped at my eyes. I did not mean to fall apart. You are allowed to have emotions. Alessandro's hand cupped my face. You are allowed to be overwhelmed and scared and confused. That is what this is. Overwhelming and scary and confusing. I read your will. I looked up at him. You really mean it. About wanting me to have choices. Every word. His thumb traced my cheekbone. My money can do good, or it can rot in accounts. I would rather it help someone I love achieve their dreams. I love you. The words came out before I could stop them. I have loved you for 5 years, even when I hated you, even when I tried to move on. You have been there, in the back of my mind, in every comparison I made with every other man. I love you, Alessandro. And that terrifies me. It terrifies me too. His forehead rested against mine, because I could lose you again. Could do something wrong, or fail to protect you, or simply not be enough. But I love you enough to risk that terror. To try anyway. If you enjoyed this emotional journey, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you do not miss the conclusion as Natalie and Alessandro face the ultimate test of whether their love can survive his dangerous world. We stood there in his penthouse, holding each other. Two people who had been broken and were trying to heal together. It was not perfect. It was not safe, but it was real. And sometimes, real is enough. That night, I stayed at Alessandro's penthouse. Not in his bed, but in the guest room. Small steps. Building trust. Learning that love did not have to mean losing myself. Over the next 3 months, our relationship deepened. I met members of his organization, the men and women who worked for him. Some were exactly what I expected, dangerous people doing dangerous things, but others were just people trying to make a living, caught in a world they had been born into. Alessandro showed me his plans for legitimization, the businesses he was building, the criminal operations he was systematically shutting down, the resistance he faced, and the allies he was cultivating. He hid nothing, letting me see all of it, and slowly, I began to understand. This was not about forgiving past crimes, or pretending they did not exist. This was about acknowledging that people could change, that legacy did not have to be destiny, that love could exist in complicated spaces. There were setbacks, times when Alessandro slipped into old patterns of making decisions without consulting me, when my fear of his world threatened to overwhelm my love for him, when outside pressures made us question whether this was sustainable. But we worked through them. Talked, sometimes fought, always came back to each other. 6 months after I had walked past him in my mother's hallway, Alessandro took me back to the coffee shop where we had our second chance meeting. "I have something to ask you," he said as we sat with our coffee. "And before I do, I want you to know that no is a completely acceptable answer." He pulled out a small box, and my heart stopped. "This is not an engagement ring." Alessandro opened it to reveal a delicate necklace with a small key pendant. "This is a key to my home. To my life. I am asking if you want to move in with me, to build something real and permanent, to be partners in every sense." I stared at the necklace, at this man who had broken my heart and spent months proving he could be trusted with it again. "I have conditions," I said, echoing our earlier conversation. "Name them. I keep my apartment for 6 months, as a backup. A safety net. I am not saying I will need it, but I need to know it is there. Reasonable." Alessandro nodded. "What else?" "We do couples therapy, to navigate the complicated parts, to have a neutral third party help us communicate better. Already looked into therapists who have security clearance to hear about my work." Alessandro had clearly been thinking ahead. "I have a list of 3 if you want to interview them, and we tell my mother the truth, all of it, about our history, about how we met. She deserves to know." Agreed. Alessandro closed the box and handed it to me. "Anything else?" I took the box, feeling the weight of it, of what it represented. "Yes, one more thing." "What?" "You have to promise that if this does not work, if I need to leave, you will let me go without destroying yourself, that you will take care of your mental health, that you will not use me as an excuse to slip back into old patterns. That is asking me not to be devastated if I lose you again." Alessandro's voice was rough. "No," I corrected. "It is asking you to be devastated like a healthy person, to feel the pain but not let it consume you, to know that sometimes things end and that is sad, but not a reason to self-destruct." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I promise. To take care of myself even if you leave. To not use losing you as justification for bad choices." "Then yes." I opened the box again, took out the necklace. "Yes, I will move in with you. Yes, I will build something real with you. Yes, I will take this risk because I think you are worth it." Alessandro's smile was brilliant. He moved around the table to fasten the necklace around my neck, his hands gentle. "Thank you for giving me this chance, for believing I could be better, for loving me despite everything. Do not thank me yet." I touched the key pendant. "Thank me in 5 years, when we have survived the complicated parts and built something lasting." 5 years. Alessandro sat back down, his hand finding mine across the table. "I can do 5 years. I can do 50 if you will have me. Let us start with 5, and see where we are." I squeezed his fingers. Baby steps toward forever. Moving in with Alessandro was both easier and harder than I expected. The easy parts were the physical logistics, my belongings fitting into his space, negotiating closet space and bathroom counters, learning each other's routines and quirks. The hard parts were emotional, learning to trust that he would come home, adapting to the security measures that were now part of my daily life, meeting the reality of his world head-on instead of at a careful distance. There were moments of crisis, a rival family making threats, an investigation that came too close to uncovering things better left hidden, times when I questioned whether I could really live like this. But there were also moments of profound connection, late-night conversations about everything and nothing, Alessandro supporting my decision to pursue additional training in trauma surgery, me supporting his efforts to fully legitimize the family business, even when it meant short-term financial losses. We attended therapy together, working through communication patterns and trust issues, learning to fight fair, to express needs instead of making assumptions, to be partners instead of protector and protected. 1 year after I moved in, Alessandro gathered his entire organization for a meeting. I attended, sitting in the back, watching as he announced the final steps of his legitimization plan, the sale of all remaining criminal operations, the transformation into a purely legal business empire. There was resistance, anger from those who had built their careers on the old ways, but there was also relief, hope, the recognition that maybe, just maybe, they could build something their children would not be ashamed of. After the meeting, as we drove home, Alessandro was quiet. Regrets? I asked. None. He took my hand. Though I am terrified I have made enemies I cannot control, that the transition will fail, that I will lose everything I have built. Then we will build something else. I squeezed his fingers. That is what partners do. They build and rebuild together. 2 years after I had walked past him in my mother's hallway, Alessandro took me to the beach, where we had our first date 5 years before, the place where he had told me he loved me the first time, where we had made plans that had seemed so certain before reality intruded. We walked along the shoreline, shoes in hand, waves lapping at our feet. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I have been thinking. Alessandro stopped, turning to face me, about second chances and redemption, and what it means to build a life with someone. He dropped to one knee in the sand. This time it was a ring, simple, elegant, with a single stone that caught the fading sunlight. Natalie Morrison. Alessandro's voice was steady, despite the emotion in his eyes. 5 years ago, I let you go because I thought it was the only way to keep you safe. I was wrong. You were safer with the truth than without me, stronger with choices than without agency, better with me than without love. I have spent the past 2 years trying to be worthy of you, trying to build a life that honors your courage and your strength and your unwavering belief that people can change. I do not know if I have succeeded, but I know that I want to spend the rest of my life trying. Will you marry me? Not despite the complications, but because we have proven we can navigate them together. Not because I can protect you from the world, but because we can face it as partners. I looked at this man kneeling in the sand, this impossible, complicated, beautiful man who had broken my heart, and then spent years proving he could be trusted with the pieces. Yes, the word came easy, certain. Yes, I will marry you. Yes, I will build a life with you. Yes, I believe in the possibility of us. He slipped the ring on my finger, then stood and pulled me into his arms. We kissed as the sun set, two people who had been given a second chance and chosen to take it. The wedding was small, my mother and Alessandro's closest associates, a judge who asked no questions about the groom's past, vows we wrote ourselves about honesty and partnership and navigating complications together. I wore a simple dress. Alessandro wore a suit. We exchanged rings and promises and built something real from the wreckage of our past. That night, in the home we shared, Alessandro whispered against my hair, "Thank you for walking past me that night, for not recognizing me, for giving me a chance to show you who I had become instead of who I was. I did recognize you," I admitted, not consciously, but my heart knew. "Why do you think I was so shaken? You hid it well." His arms tightened around me. "I have had practice hiding how I feel about you. 5 years of practice." I turned in his embrace to face him. "But I am done hiding, done protecting myself at the cost of connection." "Good." Alessandro's kiss was tender, because I plan to spend the rest of our lives showing you that you made the right choice. That second chances can work. That love is worth the risk. We lay there in the dark, two people who had found their way back to each other through coincidence and courage, and the stubborn belief that some connections are worth fighting for. The road ahead would not be easy. Alessandro's past would always cast shadows. My fear would sometimes resurface. The complications of his world would continue to intrude on our carefully built peace, but we would face it together, as partners, as equals, as two people who had learned that love is not about protection or perfection. It is about choosing each other, again and again, even when the choice is hard, especially when the choice is hard. 5 years after I walked past my mother's guest, unaware he was the man who had broken my heart, I lay in his arms, as his wife, choosing him, choosing us, choosing the beautiful, terrifying, complicated reality of our love, and I would make that choice every day for the rest of my life, because some stories do not end with heartbreak. Some stories get second chapters, second chances, second beginnings. This was ours, and it was worth every tear, every fear, every moment of doubt that had led us here, together, finally, honestly, completely together.